This is the Hot Take Hockey Podcast with your hosts, Lucas and John Viveiros.
Hey everyone, it's John here from Hot Take Hockey with the legend Lucas for episode 20 of the Hot Take Hockey Podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, Apple, thank you for the support. Episode 20, it's pretty cool. We have some big guests coming still and a lot more great conversations. On this episode, TicTacTOmar, so Omar the legend, Lucas clutch for bringing him on. So we'll chat with him later in the ep. But Lucas, man, Happy New Year. I think we have to go right into that. Just 2023. I feel like 2022 ripped by, which is pretty scary. But man, how was your New Year's and how are you feeling?
Yeah, man. Happy New Year to you as well, John. I know we didn't really get to see each other over the break, but we'll figure it out early on here in the year. Yeah. Happy New Year to you and all the listeners out there. It was a good New Year's. It was a really good New Year's ushering in 2023. Spent it with a lot of friends and of course the girlfriend, and it was a good time. One of the highlights was obviously the Leafs versus Blues game. I haven't told you this story yet. I wanted to save it for on the pod.
Yeah, how'd that go?
It was a good game, man. It was a good game. I mean, probably one of the best games of the season, right? In terms of like entertainment value the Leafs have been in. And the Leafs in St. Louis seem to always play those type of games. But that one in particular, just back and forth. And then with about 5 minutes left in the third, we noticed someone sitting next to us who was kind of like a little too tipsy, Johnny. Like they were fading out. Like, I mean, eyes closing, like screaming, go. Like she would wake up and then go Leafs, or be like, let's go Blue Jays. Like it was really weird, really weird. And we were keeping an eye on her. And then I'm not even kidding you, man. As soon as like the final horn went in the third, this girl just ukes in front of her, man.
No.
Yes, man. All on a guy, white Leafs jersey. White Leafs jersey, man. Full white Matthews jersey. Covered in red wine stain. Man. And it was just, it was one of those where it's like, damn, I'm happy that's not me. But like, how does that situation sort itself out, right? Like, someone's got to pay for that jersey, whether it's them or Scotiabank Arena or,
Wait, so just to make it clear on the pod here. So this wasn't like she threw up on the boyfriend. This was a random?
This was a random stranger directly in front of her, in between your age and my age, fully white Austin Matthews jersey soaked in red wine. And shout out to my boy Anthony, who was at the game with us. He's a podcast listener. He was the one who actually was sitting with us and called it out. And him and his wife just got out of there real quick. But it was one of those ones you laugh about, but damn, it was also just like, that's down bad right there for all those parties involved.
Oh, and man, being a big jersey guy, like I'm always so paranoid going out with my white jersey. Like I remember when I was lacking jerseys the one year in the playoffs, when I wore my signed Riley white jersey, and I look back and I'm like, what was I honestly thinking? Because a playoff game came, I think it was game 6, or I don't know. It was one of the games in 2018, I think.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what am I thinking? Like looking back, I'm like, white signed Morgan Riley jersey. And I decided to go to a game full of drunk Leaf fans. But yeah, man, this is so brutal.
This is a lesson to be learned. It's why I'm sharing it with the viewers. Don't wear your favorite jersey maybe to the game, and just always be aware, because there's some wildcats out there that could just randomly throw up. So it was down bad, man. And like the boyfriend or whoever her partner was kind of ushering her out of there, but he was almost making a whole mockery and joke of the whole thing. Like he was laughing the whole time. And it was just like, it wasn't a good look,
So were these folks screaming casuals or out to lunch casuals or what?
I don't know. It seemed like they were pretty casuals, but the guys in front of them, the one
diehard for sure.
Diehards, and they were pissed.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I mean, that was that game. I know a few days later you went to the game versus Seattle.
So that's so I haven't even talked to you about this, and so freaking brutal. And I feel bad for my buddy Jake, because like the guy just wanted to like, so it was my girlfriend and his girlfriend, and we just went out for the night and going to the Leaf game. And I feel bad because it was the whole conversation of and I said this to him, when I committed to going to the Leaf game, I didn't even look at the World Junior schedule. I just kind of figured, like knowing the date, I was like, okay, like gold medal game's probably done by then. And it was like the quarterfinals, and I was looking at all the knockout games, and I'm like, oh my God, the gold medal game falls on the Leafs Kraken game that I had already committed to. And I wasn't going to ever back out from my buddy here, but I was just like, oh my, the numbers in the stream were so insane in the semifinals, like stupid amount. I think even with all the illegal streams, I think a lot of people are in the know now that even with like networks and companies cracking down, there's still so many illegal streams out there, especially in the World Juniors. And we were still averaging like well over 1,000 live viewers in that semifinal. So
wow,
hot take hockey.
with also a few piping in with the show the game.
Yeah,
hashtag show the game. But
and obviously shout out to the other YouTubers that were streaming for it. But it's just like I was so torn because I'm like the gold medal, Canada in it. And you know what? I have no regrets in the sense that like I was glad to go out with my buddy and we had a good time and my girl. But it was just, it kind of sucked because I tried to stream at the start with my sister kind of bringing me on through Skype. And we were in the car and I was watching in the car in the first period because it started at 6:30, got to the game, the Leaf game, like 5 minutes late, which I never do, but for the sake of Team Canada gold medal. And then honestly, Lucas, I think that was potentially, if not one of the worst, or if not the worst, if like it was one of the worst Leaf games I've ever been to. Like it was horrendous. And I know Dangle and a bunch of other guys were just like calling it one of the worst efforts the Leafs have had this season. Just absolutely brutal. Matt Murray couldn't stop a muffin. It was horrible. The Leafs, even Matthews, your guy, I don't know if you saw it, like on the back check on the 2-on-1, like that, even like Sandin's pointing to him and Matthews just going for a Sunday skate. Like I just hate it. Even Riley had a garbage game. It was just the worst game to possibly go to. And then to top it all off, and I never do this either. I never leave Leafs games early. I never. And my buddy Jake was just like, it was probably halfway through the third. He's like, man, like if you want to leave early, like just let me know. And I'm like, oh, like I definitely want to stick around, like see if the Leafs can score another goal or two. And it got to like the 7 or 6 minute mark. And it was like, after Czechia came back going into the overtime, I'm like, okay, screw this, man. The Leafs are a joke right now, 5-1. Let's just rush to a restaurant and catch the overtime. And I swear, man, my buddy Jake stops for a piss. We're looking good to get there. And we're running to Jack Astor's right as we're going up the stairs. Dylan Gunther had scored, and I didn't even see the goal.
Wow. Okay, pause there for a sec. Pause there. So when you were getting up to Leafs Scotiabank Arena, was this like, could you see other fans doing the same thing? They were like going to go find a bar or go to a restaurant to check the rest of them?
Yeah. So a lot of people were leaving earlier than expected, and there was a lot of Canada jerseys in Scotiabank Arena. I don't know how many people were pulling at me where every few minutes I was pulling up my phone and pulling up Bell 5 and just ripping the game. But it was also down bad a little bit because it's like sometimes, and I did this at the Blue Jays games before, it's like if you're in a low key spot in the arena, it's like not that bad. But I was like, we were 20 rows up behind the net and crowded with people. Yeah. And it's like just pulling up my phone to watch a different game while I'm at the Leafs game. But yeah, man, it was so unlucky.
Tough. That's tough. That's tough.
But honestly, I got to watch a lot of the game just in between and got to stream a little bit, but it was just the worst luck. I wish I wanted the both scenarios and be able to stream, but it was tough luck.
No, you can't make it. You can't make both happen in that scenario. So it looks like you tried to do the best you could, but
I mean, tried to make it work.
Let's just start there then. Might as well just move on to Canada.
World Juniors.
World Junior reaction. I mean, buddy, like for me personally, I was a huge diehard fan of this tournament. And roughly when the players became younger than me, which I'm a 97 birthday, so Connor McDavid's year, after that, I became more of a casual. But this tournament, and when there's a big name out there like a Bedard, like, and other names, obviously, Stankoven, guys that really draw you in, I get into it heavy. So I almost watched every game in this tournament, and especially obviously the knockout games, watched them front to back. Just amazing, an amazing end of the tournament. The adversity that team faced, like so many times they could have been eliminated or put their heads down and called it. I mean, versus the Slovaks, obviously versus the Americans, and then in the finals too. World Junior hockey is something special, man, for the lead changes and the momentum shifts. What's your first reaction to, like, we can go with the gold medal game, but overall, just how Canada played?
Yeah, overall, I mean, we had Duffy on the pod, and like all of the conversation was that Canada was so far above all the other teams. And I do find it interesting, that outside of the Sweden game, they really didn't have full control of any other game outside of the two blowouts. So no disrespect to Germany and Austria, but it's just like those games I'll just put to a side out of my evaluation here. So out of like the games that Canada was supposed to have a tough time against, like Sweden was the only game where they actually took control. Obviously they turned the US game around, but yeah, man, I think overall watching that quarterfinal game, starting off with that individual effort from Bedard, and then the semifinal game, just the turnaround when it looked like the US were so solidified at the start. And then the gold medal. I mean, I saw both Canada goals. Actually, I was listening to the first Canada goal, saw the second Canada goal live. Thank God Shane Wright had finally arrived. Because going into that game, I was like, folks, if you're looking out for two players that have been quiet, especially in the knockout rounds, it was Brendan Othman and Shane Wright. And I said, Shane Wright, it's only a matter of time. And then, of course, he scored a big goal in the gold medal. But yeah, I can't believe Czechia actually, I don't want to underestimate them even more so, but it's like at that point of the game, I think Canada should have just had control. Like it should have been a simple 3-0 win in my eyes, but it didn't end up being that simple. Obviously the goal that went off Del Mastro in front, but yeah, man, Dylan Guenther, I think that's just how it goes down. Like some of these guys that are more experienced, Joshua Waugh and Dylan Guenther, the two guys that contribute to the gold medal winning goal. It's those two guys they've got the experience, especially Guenther. He's obviously been in the NHL. And I don't know if you saw, but Guenther and Crosby were having a chat. I don't know if it was pregame or postgame when the Penguins just played the Coyotes. That was pretty cool. Two guys that know what it means to score big goals.
That's so cool. And Joshua Waugh, I mean, he really burst on the scene for me, at least. Like, learning more about him and watching the way he played was pretty sad to hear.
And the freaking
Montreal pick. Yeah, it was pretty sad to hear that one. And Montreal's going to love him with the fact that he's obviously French Canadian and all of that too built in. I mean, they're going to love this player when they get him. But I mean, yeah, overall, not too much more we really need to hit on, but yeah, Canada eventually came through with what they were set out to do, which was win gold. Wasn't as easy as maybe us Canadians thought it would be, but it all worked out, and some names really burst on the scene, and looking forward to see Thomas Milic, what happens to him in the future, right?
What a story. What a freaking story. I know everyone talked about Connor Bedard, but yeah, that was the 1-2 punch for me by the end of the tournament, especially obviously in that semifinal. I think US fans can be upset all they want about feeling the referees robbed them, but it was Milic that robbed them. Like Milic completely robbed them.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, man, honestly, crazy tournament, crazy dub. Canada goes back to back.
Yeah. Last thing I will say about it, not a huge fan of 3-on-3 overtime in a gold medal game. Think it's a little bit ridiculous. I like it better than a shootout, obviously, but I just think that if there would be some way to get us to like the NHL format where it's continuous OT 5-on-5, I think that decides the game a lot more, properly with the deserving team.
Yeah, I agree, but I do like the fact that the overtimes are longer, and especially even like the 10-minute format. I've been saying like the NHL either like if you don't want to eliminate shootouts, at least add more time to overtime. Like that's what I've been saying. So if they're so stubborn on leaving shootouts in, and I think everyone has different opinions on it, just put overtime longer. Like an extra 5 minutes is not going to kill anyone.
And there was even games that had happened. I believe it was was it Czechia's win over Sweden, the semifinals that went to overtime, and it ended right like the final minute.
Yeah, Coolidge scored.
Yeah. So that extra time really does have an impact in terms of the teams both getting tired and not being able to run out the same,
Because to the point of 5 minutes. To the point of 5 minutes, what you just said, like you can run the same guys for probably 3 of those 5 minutes minimum. And that's what you see all the time. And it honestly drives me nuts. Like, I'm sure we'll get to the Leafs a lot in this episode, especially with Omar coming on. But it's like, I see it with the Leafs so often where Matthews and Marner are on for 2 minutes in overtime and just like exhausted. And it would just be so nice to see those guys spread out over a 10-minute period versus like trying to cram them in a 5-minute span. So that's also just the point of it.
Okay.
But so let's just quickly, do you have I was going to say New Year's resolution. Do you have
Let's start there. I'm not really big on that whole thing with New Year's resolutions, but this year, I mean, every year I feel like I do this, but I always say I'm going to read more. And I've already finished a book, banged out a book, Roz from Kiss 92.5, Roz and Mocha.
Okay. Yeah.
Read his autobiography. Unbelievable. Really recommend it for everybody. But, bit of a sensitivity warning for some things he's gone through, but it was an unbelievable story of perseverance and everything that got him to where he is today. So that was really cool. As far as other resolutions, I mean, me and you got maybe a big year ahead. I don't know, personally,
maybe
career-wise, who knows? But we have our own things that we'll keep a little closer to heart. But other than that, I don't think I have like many many things that I'm really charting to do. Obviously eating healthier and taking care of my body, getting into my mid-20s now. We'll be doing that a little more, but that's me. What about you, man?
Yeah, kind of the same as what you were getting on there. But honestly, man, and I know this is like we're on the podcast here, but seriously, the mindset's been like, I'm gonna heat up with the content again. I feel like the last few months, just with the full-time gig and just the Wolves, and I just feel like I've been so overwhelmed. But I feel like when I'm on the grind in the best way possible is when I don't have like the pressure, the stress of reaching. Obviously, want to reach certain goals, but I just feel like the best thing is like whether it's shooting the shit on the pod or like having good guests or having good conversations. It also helps when like the World Juniors happens and then the trade deadline comes and then the playoff race comes. So all that obviously is just like it brings out the passion in me. It's just like, it's just genuine more so because like we're not grasping at straws. There's a lot happening. So that's kind of a resolution. Just heat up the pod, heat up the channel again, and honestly stream more. And maybe 50K on the way for the new year. We'll see at some
50K.
point. I hope in the playoffs. I was saying last year we definitely should have got it, but last year was just so inconsistent. And it honestly, it should have happened last year, but I didn't stream as much as I should have last year. So hopefully this year's a little different.
Nice. Well, let's move on to those buds, buddy.
Yeah.
Those Leafers.
The buds have been heating up. And I do want to talk about some teams that, because we'll get into the list here. I think you have it pulled up as the All-Star list. And yeah, the Leafs, man, I know a lot of the conversation about Riley coming back and the Leafs went through the struggle and then now they just won back-to-back games. So it's going to be interesting. I think when Omar comes on, we'll talk a lot about trade targets for the Leafs and certain Leaf stuff. And I know Leafs take a big chunk out of hockey Twitter. And I do want to talk about hockey Twitter with Omar as well, but yeah, man, what do you think? Leafs get a couple back-to-back dubs after like one of the worst efforts I've ever seen.
I mean, they had some, obviously that Seattle game. Yeah, like you said, man, my apologies. That game was brutal. And even the way they played defensively a lot versus the Blues wasn't great. I know Samsonov didn't have the greatest game, but they looked messy. They've looked messy since they came back from the new year and until they've sort of course corrected a bit these last couple wins. But I did find it, and I'm gonna ask Omar when he comes on too. I did find it absolutely like borderline crazy that there was like a goaltending crisis there for like a few days. Like there was lots of talk on hockey Twitter and through even like established
it hurts my head.
Media outlets talking about that are Murray and Samsonov, turning into pumpkins.
Murray had one bad game. Man,
these guys have been great all year, like clearly overperforming than what we thought they were going to be. So if they're going to have a week or 4 or 5 games where they're not playing great, I mean, I think we ought to give it to them, right? Yeah. Like,
for the record, I'm a lot more worried about Samsonov than I am Murray because Samsonov's had like 3 or 4 games now where he's like allowed pretty weak goals. Like I'm sure you saw it against the Blues. And there's been a couple games this year where it's like whether it's the squeakers through the 5-hole or I know he's been hard on himself a couple times. But Murray, like I was so against like the Bronx chance at Murray. Like after one game, man, like I can understand looking at a couple of those goals and Murray's got to save them. But if anyone in their right mind is watching that the entire game and not questioning like down the roster, that effort. As I said, Matthews, Nylander, like I could list probably 90% of the team. It was horrendous, the effort. I mean, I always joke around about the Nylander Sunday skate and everyone was just following him along that game. It was bad.
Yeah. And you know what? The Leafs, they've rebounded and you got to beat the teams you have to beat, like that you should beat, like Philly and like Detroit that have just happened. And so that's positive. But
then you have the game in Arizona.
Yeah, the Coyotes won. We're gonna flush that because the fact that they've lost, they lost all 4 games they played them in the calendar year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
2022. Wilds. That's the Leafs playing down to their opponents, which is pretty usual. But I'm not worried about it. I am a little concerned about my prediction that the Leafs were going to catch Boston. I'm not feeling great about it right now because the Bruins just will not stop winning. So it doesn't matter if the Leafs pull off, 6 out of 7 wins because the Bruins are winning 6 or 7 of those games. I think the next 10, 15 games are going to be a sign of what happens with that. The Leafs obviously got to take care of business on this coming Saturday when they'll play the Bruins. But right now it looks like they're in a good spot. I just don't think the Atlantic is slowly getting out of reach for them. in terms of winning it.
Oh my, I know it's a broken record, but the fact that it's like a hole, man. There's no getting out of facing Boston or Tampa at this point. And at this point, it's not even Boston. It's just Tampa. Like, it's going to be Tampa again. Something crazy dramatic would have to happen for it not to be Tampa. I'm saying that right on this episode. Like, something absolutely dramatic would have to happen for, like, I want to get into the Buffalo Sabres conversation here in a second, but we'll jump into All-Star, which ties into a big All-Star in Tage Thompson. But are we really relying on the Sabres to catch up? I'll give the Sabres all their creds right now. And Tage, to me, is just on a different level, but there's no team catching Tampa.
No.
That third spot that I can see right now. And that leaves Toronto and Tampa battling for those two spots just to end up facing each other.
Absolutely. The only chance that Tampa ever gets past is if Vasilevsky and Hedman it's got to be 2 or 3 massive injuries for the rest of the season.
Or just they start crapping themselves or something. Yeah.
I just can't see that. Like, I cannot see Tampa losing that. But yeah, let's move into All-Stars, John. Let's talk about the All-Stars. So I know we were talking about it off air. It sort of was announced kind of quietly. It kind of came out of the blue a little bit, but we can go through some of the All-Stars. And which team would you like to start with? And we can rhyme.
We just talked about Leafs, Sabres, Lightning.
Atlantic.
Let's start Atlantic.
Let's go Atlantic. So obviously, how the format works is every team has an All-Star obviously going, and then now we are in the All-Star fan vote. Which
the fan voting going.
We'll see how that turns out.
John Scott Part 2? Question mark.
I don't think so. Not this time around. But in the Atlantic, we got Kucherov for Tampa, Larkin for Detroit, Marner for the Leafs, Suzuki for the Habs, Thompson for Buffalo, your boy Tage Thompson, Brady Tkachuk for Ottawa, Matthew Tkachuk for Florida, and Mr. Allmark for Boston, who doesn't lose games. Quick reaction on that. You think any of those guys could be swapped for another, or do you like all those picks?
Yeah, I like the picks. I would just say, again, there's always going to be like that second guy on the list that really could be considered. I mean, Pasternak and Allmark have been the two like screaming guys for Boston. So that's Boston. Buffalo, I mean, it's Tage Thompson, and there's no doubt about it. Toronto, you could have 3 candidates in there. Ottawa, yeah, I feel like Brady and Matthew, more specifically Matthew's been like the lone bright spot in Florida. So, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the list.
Yeah, I feel like, man, every year I look at these and it's a bit of a shame that I always have a guy or two that like really should be there. It shouldn't be up to a fan vote. They should be there. Like David Pastrnak should be there, hands down, right?
100%.
And so it sucks to see that. And I know
I think the fans will get him in.
Yeah, the fans should get him in, but that whole idea of every team has to have an all-star, I'm not a proponent of that. I think that, yeah, man, like some teams should have 4 guys there because they're that good. Like, maybe 4 is maybe the cap, but they should for sure the Bruins should have at least 2 or 3 guys there. I mean, you could say Hampus Lindholm could be there.
Well, it's also just like, I hate bashing on teams, but it's also just like rewarding like mediocrity. Like,
yeah,
don't force things like that. Like, I know it was all fun and jokes, but I mean, do Leaf fans proudly look back and be like, "Oh, Komarov was at the All-Star"? I mean, I laugh. I think it's funny. I think it's cool in a way, but I'm not. That's not my proudest Leaf moment.
No, and this conversation can even be, attributed to. Let's move on to the Pacific Division, where we have for Edmonton Connor McDavid, which is a slam down. Obviously, that's going to happen. Unfortunately, Draisaitl's not in as of yet. Wait for that fan vote. Matty Beniers for Seattle. Fiala for LA, Kadri for Calgary, Elias Pettersson for Vancouver, Troy Terry for Anaheim, Carlson for the Sharks, and Logan Thompson for the Golden Knights. What's your reaction to that team?
Yeah, there's like a few obvious ones in there. Like, as you said, I mean, McDavid's the given. Erik Karlsson for San Jose, that's so obvious. I would say even Pettersson for Vancouver is obvious, but Bo Horvat has got to be in there. So it's like, I think they could have went Horvat, and then I would be saying the same thing. That's obvious too. So that's the 1-2 punch there. Pettersson has had such a great season, but Horvat has been putting them in the back of the net. So that would be probably the biggest shame in the Pacific after, I want to say after Draisaitl, but like, I think Horvat deserves it that much more because the position he's in, the Canucks, how everything's going.
Absolutely.
Like Horvat's got to be in there.
It's crazy that he's not there. And as much as we say, oh, the fans are going to get Pasternak in, right? I mean, there's going to be one or two guys that don't get in.
Please, fans. I don't care how much you hate the Canucks. Just get Horvat in. Like that would
Horvat's got to be in there.
That'd be such a shame.
And yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. Let's move on to we're going east-west action. Yeah. So let's go back to the Central, or sorry, the Metropolitan. Excuse me, the Metro. We got Sid for Pittsburgh, Johnny Gaudreau for the Blue Jackets, Kevin Hayes for Philly, Jack Hughes for the Devils, my boy, Brock Nelson for the Islanders, Ovi for Washington, Svechnikov for Carolina, and Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers. What do you think?
Yeah, the Metro. Obvious picks, and then like up for debate. I feel like there's a couple teams there. So if you're looking at Devils, I think Jack Hughes for sure. Ovi, what he's been doing, Sid. But I look at some other teams. I feel like Gaudreau just won it off of default for Columbus. Like the season Johnny Gaudreau's had. He just wouldn't have that. Kind of similar to like, I mean, Kadri's had his moments, but that was kind of default again for Calgary because like no one's really stood out in Calgary either. Yeah. But there's a couple scenarios there. I'm trying to think like, why is there a guy that you're missing there on the Metro list?
That I'm missing. I mean, I like Dougie Hamilton in New Jersey. I think his season that he's put together has been pretty spectacular. So I feel like he has a good shot in terms of a secondary all-star getting in that isn't here. Obviously, Jack Hughes would have beat him out.
Yeah. The only one I was gonna say Rangers or Philly. Like I think the story, like I don't know if you saw Kevin Hayes, he was talking about his brother Jimmy who passed, and saying that was like the one thing he wanted Kevin to do. So I think that part of it, if there was any thought behind that, like huge respects. Yeah. I would say just on a hockey level, the only thing I would say was like maybe they look at Konechny or Hart because Hart's stolen a bunch of games for them. But I'm fine with Kevin Hayes. I think he's still top 2 or top 3 points for them. Yeah. So I'm fine with that. Like, there's not really one I'm super questioning on the Rangers. Yeah.
No, neither am I. I just think the Johnny Hockey one is a little bit suspect because
by default
it's the name and name recognition, especially with Columbus having a poor season. So that's probably why they went that route. Yeah. And finally, now we'll get to the Central. Kaprizov with Minnesota, Keller for the Coyotes, Robertson for Dallas, Tarasenko for the Blues, Seth Jones for Chicago, Kel McCarr for the Avalanche, Josh Morrissey, your guy for the Jets, and UC Saros for Nashville. What do you think about that list?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually just most curious to hear from you right off the bat about the Blues because,
listen, Tarasenko is. I feel like Tarasenko is that name recognition again.
Yeah, I'm so confused.
And me personally, with what I've watched with the Blues this year, and I think a lot of others would have the same opinion. Jordan Kyrou should be there. For me, I like Jordan Kyrou being there as the one guy for the Blues.
Yeah.
They obviously score in, as a team.
I was going to say, is that the more recent name recognition? Because Kyrou started the year really slow. I know he
did start really poor. But he's bounced back now. He's at 38 points. But that would be my guy. I think he leads the team in points. And he scored a lot of big goals down the stretch here to make them more relevant. But obviously, Robert Thomas is the other guy who has the matching contract. He doesn't score a lot of goals, so a little less sexy of a pick. He's more of an assist guy. But yeah, Tarasenko to me was just a bit odd considering he's,
I thought that one was odd too.
Yeah, he's just in the middle of the points totals as far as the top 6 forwards go. So I don't know why you would go that way other than strictly name recognition and kind of giving him his flowers before he's probably done with the Blues after this season, right? Or maybe before this season ends.
Yeah, I mean, the only other one I would say, I don't think this is biased because he's still been buzzing. I'm pretty sure he's top 5, top 6 in defense points, but Yossi. I think Saros and Yossi would be the 1-2 punch because to me, when I watch Nashville games, like they're the only two that stand out for me consistently. I mean, Forsberg, I'll give him his creds, but I think Nashville. Who is Chicago's pick again? I'm drawing a blank.
Chicago's with Seth Jones. And this is one of those conversations where in our worlds, I think we agree on this. You would have Roman Yossi in and you'd have Seth Jones out and you just wouldn't have a Blackhawks all-star because they don't frankly deserve one with the season.
To be honest, I would say same with Blues. Yeah. Kyrou's, his numbers have definitely greatly increased, but same thing. I don't think the Blues, the way they have been all season,
but then you could argue that about a number of names on here. Like we said, Gaudreau, Kadri, Clayton Keller, maybe I'd have to take a look at his.
Keller's had a decent year. Like Yeah, I mean, the two guys for me that have made storylines in Arizona is like Keller and like Gosh's Bears had a pretty good year offensively.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like you're pulling for some kind of storyline. But yeah, I think it's going to be same old, man, with these conversations. Cause like you could take 3 or 4 of these guys out in the Central and then the problem solved. Same thing in the Pacific, like problem solved, Dreisaitel's in there, Horvat's in there, and it's simple as that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's also like they want the eyes on the event. So obviously it just comes down to each team having a representative, like brings the more eyes, but
we'll see how it goes. I'm actually looking forward to it with it being in Florida. We'll see with what fun stuff the NHL's got planned down there in Florida, in South Florida. It should be a good show, but yeah, we can transition from there, Johnny.
Yeah. So I think some of the other storylines and other topics will carry over with Omar and recap a little bit, but yeah, I do want to talk about some of the guys that obviously we talk about McDavid so much, but the Hart conversation continues that. Tage Thompson, different level right now. And I think he's like one of the most underrated Hart candidates like ever. I think he needs the more creds because if the Sabres somehow make the playoffs, I don't care what people think. Like I understand McDavid dragging the Oilers half the time, but they have other big pieces there. Buffalo, the way I understand Dahlin and Tuck and all these guys have played really well, but Tage Thompson, take that guy off that roster and these guys are not sniffing anywhere near playoffs. If this team makes the playoffs, give Tage his respects. Yeah, different level. This guy's come out of nowhere. I think he's had all of the skill sets. But anyways, we'll continue chats going into the conversation with TicTacTOmar, Omar the legend. Let's continue the pod.
All right, welcome back to the pod. We're bringing on TicTacTOmar, Mr. Omar, writer at The Athletic, and GIF enthusiast, as I'd like to call him. But he'll introduce himself. How's it going, Omar?
Oh yeah, it's doing pretty well. Better that the Leafs are winning. Yeah, I had a pretty good weekend because before things were. Remember the beginning of the season where like the Anaheim Duck trip happened and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" And they started winning games and it got better.
I had to freak out myself, man.
Yeah. So like now,
did.
So now it's like it seems like at the halfway point, maybe they've cycled things in. Connor Timmins shouldn't be out of the lineup.
Mm-hmm. We got to chat about that
because that'll be a topic. But yeah.
I'll be citing your tweet for sure on the pairs. But yeah, we'll chat about it.
Yeah, but all good overall.
Sweet. Well, how about we dive in quickly to what we were privy to a little bit off air and talk about Matt Murray first off and what you were hearing regarding him and his goalpost there.
Yeah, so the Matt Murray goalpost thing has kind of become a meme amongst Leafs Twitter because he just happens to knock the net off the post, and it happened a lot like earlier in the season. I feel like it hasn't happened as often, but one of the big times it happened was in the game against Minnesota. I want to say it was an afternoon game where Wild fans were like going nuts and upset about it. So in the Philly game, there was a moment where like Murray, like mid game, it was actually pretty funny. He like turned his back to the play and was like fixing the net because it was loose, it was wobbly. But now it's kind of like blown up to the idea where apparently the league is like focusing on Murray and other goaltenders who are accidentally on purpose knocking nets off. And this came up from Michael Russo at The Athletic, and he wrote, it was noticed in the situation room last night that Murray was wiggling the net during TV timeout. League is actually testing nets coming up, but also clipping goalies taking nets off moorings and bringing examples to GM's meeting in March. Murray's net came off twice last night. So it's not only Murray that's like, it seems like he's getting the investigation, but investigation to call it that, but it seems like there is a hyper fixation on Murray knocking off the net. But I don't know, man. I think it's funny.
Yeah,
I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I mean, okay, there was one time where I'm like, yeah, he did that on purpose. I think it was after like an icing where the Leafs were being hemmed in and like they needed the breather. I watched it and I was like, yeah, you did that on purpose. But like some of them, especially in Philly, I don't think they're on purpose. But I don't know. I guess they're happening enough where like the league like kind of needs to step in. But seems that they want to pick and choose when they want to investigate things. Hey, we don't know what goalie interference is, and offside calls are like this small. But whatever. Yeah, sure. Let's hyper focus on Murray.
Yeah, and as you said, the last game that he did it, even Craig Simpson on the broadcast was kind of defending, saying he just overcommits to the post and he's trying to catch that short side. But yeah, man, I think when it comes down to the sample size is like you do it once in one game, and then as you said, the Wild game was bad because I think it was 3 instances where it went down, and the one, as you said, was really bad. And then the one against Philly, and then he's caught in between play. But yeah, I think for Matt Murray, I think. Do you think he's gotten warned at some point this season prior to this, or do you think now it's more
100%? Yeah, 100%. they probably like the league has probably called Dubas and said like, hey, this is probably happening a little too often. Like, have a conversation with their goalie. Maybe Dubas comes down with Keefe. They have a conversation with the goalie coach. Like, is this just part of his technique? Is this happening? Whatever. Just know that the league is privy on it. Because again, like the game in Philly was like one of the first times in recent memory I remember this happening, because like there was a stretch where it was happening a lot and then it hasn't happened for a while. So this is like the first time in like a pretty good chunk of time where it's taking place. So I definitely do think that Murray's been warned and talked to, but I guess now I don't know, maybe it's going to be intensified.
Yeah.
It's one of those tough things that's it's always going to be up for interpretation on, is it on purpose, is it not? These are big strong men, obviously whipping back and forth in between the
Murray's
pipes.
A big dude.
Yeah, he's a big guy. He plays with that butterfly style. So I guess we'll see what comes out with it going forward, but definitely something to keep an eye on, that's for sure.
No, we'll probably get fined.
Yeah.
They fine us for everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so overall, Omar, I know we just talked about, well, you mentioned Timmins, and I was looking at your defense pairs. I don't even think I need to pull it up. I think I have it off memory by this point, because I think that's kind of what I've been hoping for. So Omar tweeted out, make sure you guys go follow him on Twitter if you somehow haven't yet. Top pair, Riley Brody. Second pair, Giordano Timmins. Third pair, Sandy Liljegren. You at least put it out there and said, try it out. I don't know if there's some different scenario for yourself watching Riley and Brody being out and Hall taking on that role. And hey, I'm probably one of the bigger people to criticize Hall. Like I'm on the guy all the time, but I'll be the first to say he stepped up when the Leafs needed him. He stepped up when the guys went down. I don't know what this thing, I don't know if him and Riley have some feud or something, because Riley comes back and it seems like Hall's back to his old self. So is Hall coming out of the lineup more so because you just want that Timmins opportunity, or you just have too many nightmares of Hall, or what's the mindset there?
Yeah, I think there's a point in the past where it'd be like, oh, I just want Hall off the ice. But like, I don't think Hall has been as bad this year. I think he's really stepped up, especially when like it was just him and Giordano just literally taking charge of the blue line. I think he's done a pretty good job. Though granted, there are some times where he does something and it's like, why do you do that? But like when I made that tweet with the combinations, it's more just how can we keep Timmins in the freaking lineup? Because like he hasn't done anything to warrant being taken out. So it was more just trying to find ways. So I noticed that some people talk about like maybe start running a rotation. Like we're now in the second half of the season. Maybe, you know, if there's a back-to-back, maybe you sit Hall or maybe you sit Giordano or something. I don't know, but like just Timmins hasn't done anything to warrant being taken out of the lineup. And like you notice him on the ice, offensively, defensively as well. Like there are a lot. Like yes, the goal was great. The flip pass up was awesome too. But like the defensive plays, his positioning, his presence, I like him on the lineup. And like I don't know if like he's done enough to say like he needs to be in the lineup like every single game. But like I don't think he needs to go like 4 or 6 game stretches not playing games. So maybe that's something that happens like, you know, as the deadline approaches and so on and so forth. But I really hope that Keefe finds a way to try to keep Timmins in more of a regular rotation in the lineup and not just hey, Brody wants to sit because he's resting a wound. Let's put Timmins in.
Well, I think the conversation becomes tougher if the Leafs go after a forward in what I'm about to say. But would you consider 11 forward, 7D format? Because I know Tampa's pulled that, like playoff teams have pulled that to kind of keep Hall as the presence for just specifically penalty kill. Because I'm a big Riley guy, but I think when it comes down to Riley versus Hall in the penalty kill, you want Hall every time. So is that a scenario where you would consider that, or do you like how it is?
I mean, it would be interesting because like I don't think the fourth line has done enough to warrant like it's untouchable. Like remember there's that point at the beginning of the season where it was like Mulligan, Zach Aston Reese, and Camp, I think. And they just look like steadily. Like at that point, like, okay, I wouldn't touch them. But like now, I feel like the fourth line is mostly just like Pontus Holmberg and whoever is playing with him. So I think if you have Holmberg and just someone on the left or someone on the right or whatever, and then you can cycle in Matthew, cycle in Marner, cycle in Nylander for extra shifts, then that could be an interesting way to really make use of that 11-7 format, especially now that we're at a point of the season where, the big four may want to start feeling a little bit better for themselves. Matthews hasn't had a bad season. Matthews is at 20. I think he'd be sick if he can hit 50.
Oh, that's
30 and 41, buddy. 30 and 41.
30 and 41. I mean, can you do it? You know what I mean? So I guess it can be a really interesting way for Keefe to kind of weaponize the offense a little bit, especially because he loves to have those like savage shifts of like, wow, you just killed a 5-minute power play. Okay, Matthews, Martin, Tavares. Like he loves to just like screw the opposition over. So I think it'd be 100%. pretty interesting to have some pretty, I guess deadly cycles of like always having like a big scoring threat on a line, regardless of who's playing on the ice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually like it, John. I like it in the regular season, maybe trying it out for a few games for some of the reasons you gave, Omar, as well. I think when you get to playoffs, you end up playing the best 6 guys. And I think Timmins is surely creating a case right now where he could be one of those best 6 guys at that time. I guess time will tell. And obviously injuries will dictate who those 6 guys are in a lot of ways too. Omar, I want to take it back a little bit and get into your process of as far as Twitter goes.
Okay.
You're a wizard. You're a wizard of Twitter. You're a wizard with all these gifts, man. Tell me, like, what made you realize that there would be such an interest in doing like the content that you create when it comes to creating these gifts and sending them out? Like, it feels like minutes, maybe even seconds after they happen.
Oh man, if I miss a replay, I'm always looking for your stuff.
Yeah, it's just second nature. It's, I missed the replay, I'm going to TicTacTOmar. Tell me how you sort of created this name for yourself and all the content you produce, the strategy and all that behind it.
So I guess it started to I guess making a Twitter account, and initially I love telling this story because she hates it. I only made a Twitter account because my sister made a Twitter account, and I just wanted to get more followers than her, rub it in her face. Because she's like, hey, I made a Twitter account, I have like 22 followers, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. She's like, oh, I have 44 followers. I was like, okay, fine. So I was kind of getting annoyed, and I was like, okay. So then I made an account, I got the 100 followers, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? And then obviously, born a Leafs fan, so I always watch the games. So I just started like talking about the game while I was watching the game, and I would just tweet like just use like the GIF searching, and usually they'll just be like some variant of Dragon Ball Z, like a hype moment and stuff. So like I've always been like the DBZ anime person, and then that just continued on, and then in 2017. Because I realized, I have a lot to say about hockey, but I never really thought that I could kind of go anywhere with it. And then my girlfriend said, why don't you start a blog? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really think I'm like that good. She's like, no, you should do it. So I did it. I made a blog. The whole like 12 people would read it, and I'm like, yes, that's awesome. Yeah. And then afterwards, writing got noticed by Fansided. Started writing for Tip of the Tower. Shout out to Chris O'Kreinitz for finding my work there. Covered the Habs, ironically, which is actually a pretty interesting experience there for Winning Habit. Then got the opportunity to write for Pension Plan Puppets, which was a dream come true for me because that was a site that I grew up reading myself. And then when it came down to what I wanted to do there, I kind of wanted to do more like breakdown of plays and such. And I knew at the time they were already like, kind of Leaf skiffers kind of making their own name. Like the Flinter was like godly, that was the person to go to for gifts and such. And I kind of wanted, I guess, to make gifts for myself that I can use in my posts, but also try to see if I can put my own little spin on it, because for me it's not always about like goals and stuff, and like, so like, yeah, that's great, but like, I love a good like block or a good like defensive player, defensive coverage, or like Dermott used to do like this like stutter step thing. I loved it. I'm like, oh, I love when he does that. So, like those little moments I like to capture, and I realized, okay, well, like I'm not seeing that too much. So that's kind of how I guess started my gifting identity, was just like finding the moments that people don't necessarily pay attention to, or that are just too quick to happen within games. And you may not have the ability to rewind or anything. And I guess a lot of influence there was also from Greg Wyshynski's Take Your Eyes Off the Puck.
Yep.
Off the puck. Wow. Which is a great read, and something that I kind of developed there when it came to the gifting and such. And then I just wanted to make a new account. So I love tic-tac-toe goals. I love them just because they're just unfair. There's nothing you can do. And if a goalie saves it, then it's nuts. Yeah. And it just fit with my name pretty well. And then I just started doing the same thing. And then, I guess as time went on, I kind of got more comfortable, added my own like, personality, my own little spin to it. And then, people have been awesome, and liking and retweeting and sharing stuff, and I guess it's kind of just growing from there. So that's
awesome, man. It's literally a whole story of just like obviously your passion for the game and your passion for like the little plays and everything, it's taken to you where you've got, and it's awesome. And I love my favorite stuff that you put out. I mean, the copywriting is like phenomenal. Like it's crazy how like quick you are with it. But I love the clips that obviously the broadcast doesn't want you to rewatch, such as a coach swearing on the bench, or even Matthew or whatever, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah,
Keith's had a lot of moments.
Because those are like, because like I remember me, I used to like for the longest time always like go on YouTube compilations for like NHL interviews gone wrong or something, just because like those are the moments where like the players are being people, and in a sport like hockey, they're so like robotic and programmed, like pucks in deep and forecheck and like Viveiros, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like those moments where you see players as being people are just awesome. So I agree. Like those are the moments I love capturing the net. I love Keith snapping, Matthews like laughing at something, you know, them like congratulating each other after plays, you know, like good effing pass, what a play. You know, Michael Bunting doing, you know, funny stuff, Mark Giordano freaking spearing Travis Konechny, like those like people moments I think are things that like fans just like gravitate to, because we're used to the you know, big win, yada yada yada.
Yeah,
like on the ice, like you can't,
like
you can't hide your personality on the ice. And I think that's I guess that's one of the more I guess fulfilling aspects of gifting, is being able to capture those moments.
Yeah. So on that, I guess, I mean, just looking at how much you've done, does it feel like some nights, like you're kind of just like, oh, I just want to lay back and just like kind of nothing to do with any of that, just lay back, be a fan? Like just sometimes does it get heavy a little bit on you?
Not really, because like I guess it's funny. Like I still react to things like while I'm watching the game. Like it's hilarious. Like I'll still like scream. Like I'll be like watching the game, like, oh, let's go. And then afterwards, I'll capture stuff. So it's never felt like a chore or a job. It's just it's kind of just like, it's kind of just part of like my nightly routine now, I guess, when it comes to watching games. And so I think that's good, because you know I've never wanted anything that has to do with hockey to be a job. I've always wanted to be something that you know, I just wanted to do. And to be honest, there's a time where I didn't think I'd ever be able to do anything in hockey, like quote unquote legitimately. So I take every game and every night, you know, and again, I look forward to being able to capture those moments and share them with people, because you know, I know how much I appreciated them when I was a fan. So being able to do the same thing has been pretty cool.
Yeah, I asked that also because I just know, even creating content, and especially for hockey, it's like if you start getting that mindset where it's like a forced thing or a chore or any of that, you lose the passion, and sometimes people see through it. But
absolutely, there are moments though where like okay, as a fan, back to back goals are cool.
Yeah.
As a giffer, they suck. Because it's like, okay,
catching up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm like, okay, stop.
So that game that I was at, Leafs Blues, it wouldn't have been a good one for that.
Oh my god, I was like screaming, please just like let me catch up. Just give me like 10 minutes, please.
Yeah. I think there was 3 goals in like a minute 17 or something on that one. That was wild.
Quick.
Yeah.
I was also going to ask, I know you mentioned like appreciating everyone retweeting and liking. Do you remember maybe like whether it was the first few of like, whether it was a prominent like sports personality or media personality, like anyone that gave you a shout that you can remember?
Oh, I remember like before the gifting, like when I was just blogging, Steve Dangle like retweeted one of my posts and it got like 45 hits, and I was like, holy shit. That was cool. I think Chris Johnson once. I think Chris Johnson was one of the first like I guess like insiders to like my stuff. Mark Masters as well. Like I think he would like take like quotes from the players, like talking about a specific event, and then like quote tweet my gif with it. So noticing that was pretty cool, and that was kind of like oh my god, like people are actually kind of like I guess noticing it. So I guess Mark Masters would definitely be one of the first names of that kind of like noticed like the gifts, and it was kind of like, oh my god, wow, like that's pretty cool.
That's huge.
Nice. Transitioning a little back to the Leafs. What's your feeling on where they're at right now as we get into the second half? Obviously, John and I were talking about it. It's really looking like it's going to be Tampa Bay when we get down to that first round. I mean, Boston, it doesn't lose games, so I can't see the Leafs catching them right now.
Omar, is this year different?
What's going on, Omar? What's going on, Omar? Are we going to get out of the first round this year?
Okay, here's the thing. I've learned, man. I have truly learned. And last year, I was like, this team feels different. And they were. Up until game 6 where they lost. And I was like,
Yep.
So it's like, okay. This Leafs team has probably played the best hockey in the Matthews era. I don't think I've seen a team in the Matthews era that's had such a commitment when they're on to like defense and shutting down the opposition and building pressure and such. Like I know a lot of people are focusing on like Matthews, like, you know, only having 20 goals. I'm like, he's only having 20 goals, but I'm noticing him like make all these defensive plays, like multiple defensive plays, like every game. Like he's been on it every game.
Mm-hmm.
Nylander has been better defensively. Marner's been better defensively. You have a prospect. I wanted a prospect to come out of nowhere for so long. Pontus Holmberg out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, like solidified himself on the fourth line. So like there are so many things that are just working in the favor, but it's just like, and for a moment, I was like, you know what? Maybe this team might be different. And then I watched Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov get lit up.
Oh no.
And that concerned me. It wasn't a concern at the beginning of the season. I was pleasantly shocked. I was like, give me like 900 goaltending. I will not complain. And they went above and beyond. Samsonov went above and beyond because Murray got injured after game 1. And then it was like his net for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, we've seen this story before of the team playing very well in a playoff game and then just getting crap goaltending. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm concerned.
And it's a shot that has to be stopped, and
making the big save.
Exactly. Like that's my worst. That's what I keep envisioning ever since like the rough patch of Murray Samsonov. That's what I've been envisioning against Tampa. It's like the Leafs like come out hot, they're dominating, they're cycling the puck. Vasilevsky is making stop after stop after stop after stop, breakaway, goal. And I don't know if the Leafs can outscore that.
Yeah, and you know what? To your point, we're never going to know that. We're never going to know that until the time comes.
Exactly.
But I do want to say, I want to push back a little bit because Murray and Samsonov, like you said as well, were really, really, really good and consistent all season until that little blip that has been of recent memory. So I think they've earned that little blip. Let's see what the next few weeks look like. But overall, obviously, they've outperformed what we thought of both of them, right? I mean, I'm happy with both of their efforts and both of their play thus far. Yeah. Can one of them make those big saves in the big game? We're not going to know. Right. Yeah. Right, John?
And another thing too, is you can't run a tandem in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So at some point between now and April, someone's got to take the reins and Keefe has to look at someone and say, you're the guy. Game 1, it's you. Like, and I would highly doubt we go Murray Samsonov in the playoffs. Like, it's going to be one person until it's not, and then the next person goes in. Now, who would start game 1 right now? I couldn't tell you.
I think benefit of the doubt is going to be Murray.
Probably just from the raw experience. But I think what the onus has to be from the team is that they need to see, especially in like December and November. They need to look at those games and say, like, this is how we played and we limited dangerous chances. We made it so easy for Murray and Samsonov to make those changes and make those saves. If we play that way, then they have a shot. They play that way. I honest to God have confidence that they'll do it this year.
Mm-hmm.
Also, because Tampa's been a little this year. Also, Vasilevsky's been a little this year as well.
But sometimes he's like that, and then playoffs come, right?
Yeah. It's like, okay. Like, oh my God. Like last year, freaking David Camp was a Vasilevsky killer. Yeah. He had like 4 against him. That was hilarious.
He did.
Oh my God. So it's just like there are a lot of question marks, which sucks because like we're desperate. We're desperate for any. A lot of people are like, oh, you only want the second round? Yes. As soon as I hear someone say the second round begins and the Toronto Maple Leafs are playing a game, I'm satisfied. I don't care what happens in the second round. I know I understand how I don't know how like loser energy that sounds. I do not care at all.
No, they gotta get the monkey off the back, 100%.
Exactly.
No, John, I've actually switched to that exact mindset. It's funny that Omar brings it up and people laugh at me, but I'm like, man, I will think about winning the second round once they're in the second round. My brain is only focused on winning the first round. Yes. I don't have these, the Leafs are, they aspire to make the conference finals this year. I don't care. I just want to win the first round. We'll have that conversation hopefully at the end of April when they've done it, right? And then we can talk second round.
Exactly. Or maybe they get hit with the Disney Channel music. They win one round, they win another one, and then another one. Then hey, actually no, they have to stop it. If I've been on record saying this like to anyone I know. If they make the final, they have to win. I will not survive. I will not make it. Bro. I will not make it. If they get to the final and they lose, I will be like logged off like in a cave.
I wouldn't be seen for a month.
I think all of Leafs Nation would go under.
Literally,
not see them for.
There'd be millions of users off of Twitter if that happened. But yeah, just like it just a lot of things need to work out for them definitely, and I think the trade deadline will, could I guess tip the needle in a certain area, but like. I want to believe in this team specifically. I want to believe in them so badly.
Yeah.
But damn, man, there's been so many like, they can. Oh, okay.
John, Omar just teed you up there.
Omar, Omar made my job easy. Easy transition. So the state of the Leafs as it is right now.
Yeah.
Dubas, buddy. No contract extension. This is the trade deadline where I know we always tee up the splashes or talk about the potential splashes. So a little segment here. I'll start because I'll let you guys think about it for a second if you don't got a name in mind. But Leaf targets, if you had your like top 3 list or your top 1 target, who is it? So for me, I look at like what the team needs, but also obviously the dream candidate. So I think one guy that's been kind of shoved down our throats recently is Timo Meier. I think looking at the Shark situation and Meier's age, and then obviously the qualifying offer and RFA status, all this stuff comes into play here. So I don't know if that's a target for now and in the future or what it is, but so that's I would say unrealistic one. But then I look at the realistic chances here and I look at Nashville and I would say I've seen a lot of people throwing out the Jeannot and Matthias Ekholm conversation. So for me, I like the Tanner Jeannot conversation for a third line. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but watching Engvall this year, 6'5", and not laying a body for a second, it's gotten so bad that I'm like, this can't happen going to the playoffs. You can't be skating by guys on the Lightning without even a breath. So I'm looking at Jeannot and Ekholm. I know the stereotypical Leaf fan sometimes on Twitter going, we need toughness and grit and all that stuff. But I mean, I think Jeannot and Ekholm bring a lot more than that. But Omar, man, I know you've thrown out some names up there on Twitter. Who are your like maybe couple or top 3 on your list that you really got your eyes on, or Dubas should have his eyes on?
Yeah, Meier's been another name that I kind of circled around. I wonder if there's a realm where Travis Konechny is moved. I think that could be an interesting little mix of both, grit, annoyance, and players that can finish. Because like I'm bunting on one line and him on the other would be hilarious.
Oh, that'd be great.
But I am with you, man. Like I respect Engvall's speed and I respect what he does on the penalty kill and I respect his finishing power, but like there are moments where I just watch him and it's just like, I mean, you could have rushed the net a little there, instead of just taking like a long shot into the chest, just pull it into the backhander a little bit. I just don't think, Keefe has talked about like scoring playoff type goals. And I don't know if Engvall can do that or if he's like the type of like personality that we need in a long playoff run. So it would be interesting to maybe have a replacement there, but like Konechny's been a name that I've kind of been like, I guess eyeing and circling. And I think I want to say Dubas and like a scouter Dubas and like another AGM was like in Philly watching a game. So
yeah, it was the Coyotes Flyers game. So maybe there's a Coyotes target as well in there.
Yeah, man, quickly jumping in on it too. I think my my dream scenario for the Leafs is to upgrade forward, obviously over defense. And particularly it would be 2 guys on the Blues, being O'Reilly and Tarasenko. Obviously both of those probably happening, very unlikely, but one of those options I think would be huge for them going into playoffs. That's kind of the sexier pick. Obviously the Blackhawks have 2 stars up there. That would be nice as well, but I think that's dreaming. And then the less sexy pick that I also have started to circle comes from Chicago, both players actually, Anthony Ciu and Max Domi. I think Max Domi is kind of similar to that Konechny realm of player, less skilled, like obviously less proven, we'll call it at this point in his career at least. But I think Max Domi, especially just with the whole Ty Domi's son hype, would be crazy, him playing for the Leafs. And Athanasiou, I think, brings that speed and could score a few big goals in the playoffs. So those are kind of my forward targets.
Yeah, Athanasiou would actually be pretty interesting because, you don't really notice how, I don't know if you don't notice it, but it's not talked about how fast he is. Like, it's actually like, it's surprising. I remember back when he was on Detroit and he was facing the Leafs and he just like took off down the wing and I was like, holy crap. Like, you forget like how fast he is. So that actually could be a pretty interesting dynamic. I guess a question for you two. Järnkrok's been fitting in pretty nicely.
Yep.
He has.
Do you think Dubas says, maybe we can leave it, we bring in Nyes, and that kind of finalizes things there? I don't want that, but like, do you think that's the thought process is taking place?
Well, I think the thought process is taking place. What I will say is kind of back to the Engvall conversation, just based on fit and how this roster will look, hopefully going into the playoffs. I realistically don't think that happens unless you move Engvall out to me, Kampf takes on too much of a role to ever send him back down. I think at this point, especially what we saw in the playoffs, I think Kampf is your 3rd line guy, unless you get a significant upgrade. Like, I think you'd have to go for a big time upgrade to send Kampf down. But so Kerfoot, Engvall, if Järnkrok takes that slide down, is it a trade for one of those guys, or is it one of those guys just getting stuff from the 4th line? What I will say though is, just on what you said, that mindset definitely comes into play as well on what Dubas will look for. So I know everyone's talking about the big splash, but look what he just did with Arizona. Everyone talks about Chychrun. Everyone wants to connect Chychrun to the Leafs, but then he goes for the underrated guy in Timmins. And I feel like that could be a similar outcome, whether it's like I look at, as I just said, Nashville or like Chicago. Everyone wants to connect Patrick Kane, including myself, to Toronto somehow, but then Domi could slip in. Yeah, Lucas, what do you think? I feel like the Nyes conversation could come into play, but I just think Järnkrok's looks so good on that second line lately.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Nyes play for the Leafs when the day comes. Hopefully it'll be this year. But I don't think that you can put your eggs in the basket thinking he's going to do what an addition would do from another team, right? Like the guys we've talked about here. So I think that's a bit of a cop-out if Dubas does that. At the same time, I think he's a very valuable piece that should be a Maple Leaf for years and years to come. So I do not want him traded whatsoever. But I think it's on Dubas to make a big move and to address the forward core. Even if Järnkrok is playing very well, they still, I think, are a big piece away for rounding out that team. And maybe that means a guy going out the other door, right? Like Kerfoot, Engvall, whoever it is. Right.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, can you make, because apparently Dubas doesn't want to move Nyes, which I 100% agree with, and the 1st round pick. Can you make a big move without moving your top prospect or a first rounder?
So what's the percentage that one of Robertson, Niemela, and Voigt, one of those guys gets moved before the deadline in your eyes?
High. Yeah.
I think the first two, they need to detach from holding on to that. If that's what's going to get a big move done, you have to do that. It's too crucial at this time period with the way things are going in the future with Matthews' contract, Nylander's contract, all of these things uncertain. The 1st round pick cannot be attached to, I don't think.
Yeah. Don't do a Foligno, Dubas. Don't have the fear.
But no Foligno.
But don't do a Foligno. But I will say, I know, Lucas, you just talked about the big Blues guys. I hope Dubas doesn't cop out, but I wonder if he goes for like the bigger option and then maybe a low key option. So everyone's going to talk about O'Reilly and Tarasenko with the Blues, but does Dubas go after a Barbashev type player? Like that's going to be a guy pending UFA. Another name I'll throw.
That's another good name.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but Omar, man, this is the Hot Take Hockey podcast. Whether it's, I'm going to assume you go Leafs direction, but could be in any direction, whether it's playoffs, NHL. Do you have a hot take for the listeners and the viewers. Any kind of hot take, doesn't matter.
Oh man.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
See, okay. Here's the thing. I would. However, I've been burned by making a lot of takes and having those takes go
Omar, I'll say it for you. I'll say it for you. 30 and 41, buddy.
Well, that one for sure. 30 and 41, 100%. Yeah, I try to like avoid like making hot takes about other teams because like it comes back to like bite the Leafs. I laughed at the Oilers getting swept by Winnipeg in the 2020 playoffs, and then it was 3-1. I said, I said, hey, Jimmy VC ain't scoring, and he scored twice. He liked it. God, that was funny.
But 30-41, I don't know. Is that a crazy hot take for Matthews? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I feel like we've seen him go through crazier stretches.
Hold on. Let's take a gander at the standings here, because like I think especially in the West, there's gonna be a team who's in right now that may not be.
Go Omar, Sabres in or out? That's the other conversation right now.
Oh, come on. I saw that the other day. People were saying like, oh, I think the Sens, are on a heater. Like, could they contend for a spot? I'm like, what? Come on.
No, it's crazy how much things have changed in terms of the wild card. But yeah, I think the top 3 Atlantic, I can't see it moving.
Yeah, no kidding.
Give us one in and one out. How about that? One team you think's jumping in and one that's falling out.
Lucas, the Devils, though, man, they're not looking as safe.
I think. I was about to say, you know what? I think they couldn't fully. Could they fully fall out?
They could.
Yeah, you know what? Let's say the Devils fall out.
Oh, I put the idea in his head.
let's say because Washington surprised me. I thought this would be the year Washington missed. Washington is ironically like Pittsburgh, where like any year you think they're gonna miss, they don't. So I think Washington keeps their spot. I think Pittsburgh is gonna turn it on a little bit. And I don't know how much the Devils can hold on. Not saying they're playing poorly, but I think teams below them, especially in the Metro, are gonna start turning on a little bit. Yeah, so I think the Devils miss. I also think Colorado gets in. I know they've had like a very like unlucky year, but like they have like, let's see. So they have 3 games in hand on both Calgary and Edmonton, and they're only 2 points back.
And the Blues who they're tied with. So
it's no guarantee that the Blues like completely sell either. Like, they have like O'Reilly and Tarasenko out, but like they can come back, I think, before the deadline. So
yep.
Who knows?
Yeah, I think the Blues are in that window of they might be that team that just is on the outside looking in. So it might be wise for them to sell, but we'll see what happens.
And sorry, quick, Omar. I was going to ask you, as Leaf fans, your thoughts on the Panthers situation. Are they toast and the Habs first round pick? Do you have like is this going to be similar to what happened with the Sharks Sens Carlson pick? This is like giving me that. But this is even worse. This is Ben Sherratt trade result here.
Yeah, they goofed. They protect your picks. Like, protect your picks. Because, like, if they continue to... So, right now, are they in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Like they're 9th. It would 10. Be if the lottery...
They're 11th. Oh, 11th, come on. Come on, Bill. That's tough. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, man. And
Zito's been praised for a lot of great moves, but that one is like a risky move and no protection.
They really thought it was their year last year.
They went for it too early.
They really went hard last year.
Yeah, they went for it way too early. And it's like, and again, I know that's ironic coming from Leafs fans, but like they went in too hard too quick. Because man, yeah, they won that first round, but like and there was no guarantee. There are moments against like the Caps where I was like, oh my god, they're gonna lose in the first round. And then they face Tampa, just done. Yeah. Like nothing to show for it. They lose Giroux. Giroux goes to Ottawa, and now they're not gonna have a first round pick in what people are saying is gonna be the best draft since 2015.
Yeah.
How ironic is that Ottawa, Montreal, and Calgary? It's possible that all 3 could finish with more points than Florida, and that's relevant to the conversation.
Man, they should have kept that coach. I don't know why they hired Paul Maurice. Like, as soon as it happened, like, you ever see something happen and you're just like, that wasn't smart.
Yeah.
Like immediately, no hesitation. Like, it didn't make sense. I'm like, but he was good. Like, the other dude was good. Like, you broke records with him. I don't get it. But I don't know. I guess you just reap what you sow. So I don't think there'll be a team who will trade a first round pick in advance in a while. And I also don't think there's going to be a team who's going to give a goalie double digits because wow, Bobrovsky still makes 10 for like another 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Ooh.
All right, Omar.
Yeah, Lucas.
Well, yeah, man. Big time. Really appreciate you hopping on and shooting it with us. Unbelievable. We'll look to stay in touch and maybe connect closer to playoff time.
Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to that. Maybe we'll do a little preview before possible pain. Who knows?
I was gonna say, Lucas, clutch move, bring it on Omar. What a guest. Huge guest.
Beauty. All right, Omar. Thanks so much, man. We'll keep in touch and all the best going forward as we start the second half of the year.
Yeah, you too. Take it easy, boys.
Yeah, thanks, Omar. Legend. That was sick.
Legend.
I like the fact that awesome. I know some people might be honest, some non-Leaf fans, because like for any Leaf fan, I think honestly, if you're a Leaf fan and you're on Twitter, I'd be shocked if you've never seen Omar's tweets, like ever. Like that would be shocking.
Over 30,000, buddy. Over 30,000 followers. That guy is just like you said, John. You put it before I even jumped in and said it. If you miss a replay, if you miss anything that you saw on the broadcast for a quick second, and you're like, I want to see that clip again, go to his Twitter, follow TicTacTOmar. He's got it all there.
Yeah, and follow along with what he's doing. Mad respects to anyone that comes on the pod, and that was a really good chat. So yeah, to wrap it, Lucas, I know we kind of had the conversation about Tage Thompson a little bit, brought it up a little bit with him, but yeah, some guys coming back. So the Hurricanes, so the Sabres are kind of I don't want to say low-key wagon because I think everyone's hyping them up too much because of what Tage is doing. But you know what? I'll give them the creds. I hope actually the Sabres make the playoffs, because in some scenario where the Sabres get a chance to play like the Bruins, for example, and just to create some kind of maybe storyline, or like the Leafs somehow go on a run, catch Boston. Imagine a Leaf Sabres playoff round these days. Not to say that's going to happen,
awesome.
But
that
would be awesome.
Yeah,
so what I was going to say is other teams are now, I know Omar said Pittsburgh's going to go for a push. Carolina just got Pacioretty back, and there's a bunch of teams that are getting that opportunity, like the Caps getting Wilson and Backstrom back. No Carlson, but still Wilson, Backstrom. They didn't have much to show for. They only beat Columbus 1-0, but still dub. Which teams right now? Obviously, the Sabres are rising, Sens are rising a little bit. We can create storylines all we want. Which team do you think is going to go through that next explosion period? Do you see a team right now that you're like, okay, watch out, they're going on a run here?
I think Carolina is going to create major distance from everybody else in their division, at least. Obviously, Boston's above them, but I think in their division right now, as of today's recording date, they got 4 points up on New Jersey, who's second. I can see them blowing this thing open and really grabbing hold of the Metro. A couple weeks down the line, I think, like you said, with Pacioretty back and their goaltending, man, like I don't even know what they're going to do, because like Ranta's obviously had some shutouts. Kochekhov's been amazing. Freddie's this whole time hasn't been even playing, and they're still first in their division. I think Carolina is truly like the class of that division, and that would be my team to watch out for right now.
Okay, so I'll mix in this conversation a little bit with fantasy advice. Maybe I'm beating the old drum here, and Lucas, as we're recording here, before it's released for your league, I know Nick's gonna get pissed at me for giving you advice again, but I have this weird feeling that Demko's nearing. If Demko's for some reason on free agency, because someone dropped Demko and I picked him up, I'm like, you know what? You don't drop Demko and leave him there. So I picked him up, I threw him on my IR, and he's been chilling there. I don't know why I'm still in this Canucks like mindset here. I really don't. I'm stupid. I'm so dumb. But the reason why I also asked you that question is because we're around the same time when the Blues did that major shift in the month of January, where they last place. I don't think we're ever going to see that again for a long time, because that's stupid crazy. But I'm looking at some of those teams, and the two teams that scream out to me, well, I'll say three, because Calgary's gotten closer again, but the two are Vancouver and Florida for me.
Yeah.
We just talked about Florida. I know it's a joke right now, a big storyline. And I really think how the hockey gods work here, I think the Panthers are going to screw themselves and give them a top 10 pick to Montreal. But then there's the other side of me that Florida still has a lot of talent on that roster. And to me, it's like, it's going to go crazy, because either the Panthers make their way back into the playoff conversation, or do they end up trading guys like Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, go down the list and really, I don't know, and really blow it up to an extent outside of obviously Barkov and Tkachuk. But Yeah, I don't know, man. Between the Panthers and Canucks, those are the two teams that I look at that maybe they can go on a run, like that unexpected run.
I think the East is so good, John.
Yeah,
the East is so good. Like I can see the Panthers going on a run and creating relevancy again, but like they're going to get themselves in such a tough I mean, at this point, they have to do that. They have to be the 9th or 10th team in the conference if it has to be that way, as opposed to finishing bottom 10, because they have no other option. So I don't see them making the playoffs with how tough it is to get in. I think the Sabres still got an outside shot, but I do like the Islanders more in the East. And as far as your Canucks energy goes there, I mean, man, the West is obviously much more wide open.
Yeah.
Thatcher's got to go on a run though, buddy, when he gets back. Like he's got to be
coming back soon as we record.
Elite Demko,
he was really bad this year. So I'm just expecting him to turn it around in some sense. And I look at the Western Conference, as you said.
Yeah.
In some ways wide open. And it's like, how much have we been bashing on the Blues and bashing on the Preds, and they're right there with the Avs? Like, I don't understand, man. Sometimes I forget that it's that close because the Western Conference has been that bad. And same thing with the Canucks. The Canucks have 2 games in hand on the Flames and Oilers. So say they get 1 win out of that. It's like, they're only 6 points back at the Oilers. And I feel like the way we've been bashing on the Canucks this season, the Oilers have a bunch of their own problems, but it's like, it should be much bigger of a gap between the Oilers and Canucks.
Well, that's what's so disappointing about the Canucks, though. Like, to your point, is like they have maintained relevancy this whole time. Like, they're still somewhat there. There still is somewhat hope. And it's like, man, some of those losses they had, like if you flick 2, 4, 6, 8 points difference, they're in, right? Like, man,
the Preds are one to watch for me because
Preds,
again, they're the team that doesn't make sense. That's why I'm saying like the Canucks, because I like the Canucks, obviously skill set down the lineup, but they're a mess, obviously, behind the scenes. Realistically, as a fan and as a Canadian fan, I want to see the Avalanche in because I think going for the back-to-back will create good matchups and create like the competitive series. So I want the Avs in.
They'll get in.
I don't know if that makes the Wild out because Stars and Jets are pretty safe, I think. So Avs, the game in hand on the Wild, they're only 4 points back. I think that's a possibility for them to swap at some point this season. And then for me, I want the 2 wildcard spots. If the Kings and Kraken were to hold on, which I'm still not sold, Flames, Oilers for the wildcard spots. I think that's the realistic outcome. But Preds have only played 38 games, and they're only 1 point back of the Avs.
And the Preds are going to be sneakily just hanging around.
They could be one of those pesky teams. So I don't know. The Preds, everyone always overlooks them. And on paper, like if you look at that roster, it's like it's not that sexy at all.
No.
So I don't know, man. The fact that they're at 42 points, 38 games, 18-14-6 record as we record, the Preds could be one of those pesky teams. But I do think, man, if the Blues, and they've played more games than those guys, if they keep on this pace where they're around 500, I truly think they need to make the trades. Like, don't be that mediocre in between team. And I know there's been a bunch of stuff behind the scenes too. It's like, just make the deals. Don't make the. And I know this is coming from a Leaf fan again. I watched years where the Leafs just finished in 9th or 10th place, tried to squeeze into the playoffs. It just didn't work. So I think it would be tough because the Blues have always been a consistent like playoff appearance team. So it'd be tough to kind of have to soak that. But I really, truly think if you're in that in-between stage and you truly think there's a good chance you'll miss, make those trades. O'Reilly, Tarasenko. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Lucas. I mean, this is my opinion based on everything that's happened. I think O'Reilly could come back, but I think Tarasenko's probably gone in the offseason.
Tarasenko's, he's good but gone. I think there's no chance he comes back, to be honest. I would be shocked if he comes back.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for years. I mean, since they won the cup, it feels like shortly after that there was already the noise of him wanting out. So I think he's gone, like you said. I think O'Reilly's going to have to take a hometown discount if he would want to stay, and I don't think that's even captain discount. I don't think that's in his best interest. So. Like you said, and I think the Blues have a bit of an identity crisis where they have these new skilled, flashy players coming in, but they're still trying to keep that old way of Blues hockey, and they got to just decide which direction they're going in. So John, I'm on your wagon. Unfortunately, I think it's time to wave the towel and trade guys out and see what it turns into for next year as far as a retool goes on the fly. But
and again, we might look like a dummy in a few weeks here if
the Blues are one of those teams that can win and rip off 6 or 7 in a row. I just right now have a hard time seeing it happen. But crazier things have happened. We will see.
Yeah, and I still think I remember our predictions pretty well, but even from my predictions, like I truly think the only two teams I was far off on are the Stars and the Kraken in terms of like, but again, I'm sorry, Kraken fans. I'm just not, I actually want the Kraken to do well. And the Leafs effort obviously took a big part in that Thursday night, but it's like, I still have a hard time believing that this is going to stay, only because the Flames and Oilers have been such a bad storyline that the fact that on paper, I know the Kraken have 3 games in hand. The Flames are only 2 points back. Oilers 3 points back. I don't know. I'm just not sold yet.
Yeah.
But the Stars, I was a dummy. I shouldn't have. I'll admit, I shouldn't have overlooked them. I should have relied, even with all the conversations about the defense after Heiskanen and Lindell. And yeah, I don't know. The Stars.
That's how legit. I feel about the Jets, John. That's how I feel about the Jets. But you know what? I'm still confident to double down and say, Jets, you want to make the playoffs? You're not going to do much in them. So that'll be my little hot take as we head out on this pod.
I love it. Well, man, as I just said, if the Wild don't hold that spot, who are the Jets playing first round? The Avalanche. So I don't think that's a bad take at all, because if I would say you're the first person to say, especially with the Blues matchups, that the Avs are a team you can't bet against, at least in recent memory.
The Avs are getting in. Let's not get it twisted. The Avs are getting in.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. So anyways, guys, episode 20. We've got some big guests coming the next couple of months. I think Lucas and I, we've talked about it. Whether, I don't even know if it's calling it a grind. It's just more so we're going to make an effort to get more people on the pod, but also just take your recommendations. So don't be shy. Reach out to either of us on DMs or just on socials, wherever. But episode 20, man. Lucas, final thoughts?
This was a marathon, this one. It was awesome, though. I mean, we really touched on a lot here. I mean, especially with the Christmas break and all that now behind us.
Yeah, we took a couple weeks off.
Yeah, man. Episode 20 was a banger. Omar, I really appreciate him coming on. Make sure to check him out. And here we go from here in 2023, John. Let's keep the pedal to the metal.
Yep. Episode 20 and on the way to 30 now. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. If you're on Spotify or Apple, and if you're not, make sure you go. Give it a little like, rate, follow, all that good stuff. And yeah, YouTube, thank you so much for the continued support. 50K on the way, hopefully. And yeah, Lucas, again, thank you so much, man, for pulling the app. And we'll talk about it. Lucas pulled another big guest for the following week. So I gotta get my shit together here. But hey, thanks,
you're
man.
grinding, Johnny. You're grinding. Don't worry.
We're all grinding. We're all in the grind.
You know that I really appreciate all you do for us too at the HTH pod and everything you got going on. So thank you. Let's start this year on a positive. On
a bang. Yeah. Appreciate it, Lucas. So from Lucas, myself, John, episode 20 of the Hot Take Hockey podcast. Thank you, as I said, listening, watching. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.